Oh, you would. And I really compliment you for being that person always there on the other end of the line if people want to call in a report. Um, and that's fascinating that you can actually do that all these years. And we thank you for your service, obviously.
Well, thank you for saying it. I have a slight social commitment to, and even at this late hour, to engage in. So what I would like to do is bow out for now, if I may, and with a promise that as your schedule permits, I'll be back sometime. We'll talk about more cases.
Well, wonderful. And thank you very much, Peter, for calling in from the East Coast out there in your 40-year reunion with some of your colleagues there.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thanks for the invitation. As always, you're doing a wonderful job as a new host, and I look forward to many more appearances to inform your audience of what's going on with regard to the UFO phenomenon.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, have a wonderful night out there. I know you're 3 hours ahead, too, so thank you for that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Good night, Peter. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Hey, Michael?
Yes, Gary.
Your guest is on the line.
Oh, wonderful. This is Brian Snowdy, ladies and gentlemen, and he is a fantastic and well-known JFK assassination researcher that we have just been so lucky to be able to get on nightdreamstalkradio.com. Are you there now, Brian?
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, you're coming across just fine there. Thank you for waiting, actually, till Peter got off the line. It's always fun to have Peter call in with sighting reports that are happening, either coming into the reporting center right away or historical reports that have just been recorded as well. So how are you doing, actually, tonight yourself?
All righty. Thank you.
And I hope you're relaxed. I hope you're at your favorite bar or wherever you're at and having a cold drink. This is going to be a lot of fun tonight.
Well, I'm at my apartment. My favorite bar is too busy. And instead of having a cold drink, I'm just going to have my my normal Italian Chianti. Yes.
Oh, well, that's kind of fitting with some of the maybe should we say mafia people that we are going to be talking about tonight, that you'd be having an Italian Chianti. Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, Brian, I would like you to tell us, maybe the audience out there initially, how you initially got interested in the JFK assassination to begin with.
Okay, I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I did it basically through Oliver Stone's movie. When I was a kid, I was not interested in modern history. I was interested in fantasy worlds and ancient history. I wanted to be a Dungeons and Dragons artist. I wanted to draw Star Wars robots and maybe work on a Conan the Barbarian comic book. And I like ancient history. I read tons of books on Vikings and samurai, Celts and Romans, Greeks, and you throw in some Hittites and some sea peoples, and that's kind of where I was going. And
Isn't that fascinating?
It wasn't until Oliver Stone's movie came out that I didn't even see it when it came out. I saw it probably about a year and a half after, and it really woke me up.
Yeah, and do you remember how old you were at that point?
Yeah, I think I was 20. I think I was 27 or maybe even 28.
Yeah. All right, and that seemed to have caught your imagination. Why do you think you were so interested in the idea that President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was shot in Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas? Is there something that you remember motivated you to start researching that?
The only thing I could think of is when I had rented the movie out of a whim. I had worked in advertising at the time when the movie came out, and I wasn't interested in seeing it. And one of my coworkers, who I actually went to art school with, we had similar taste in movies, and he was kind of like my older brother. And he said, you like this movie, Brian, trust me. And I went, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. Well, about a year and a half later, the entire art department was fired. And I started working in comic books and Saturday morning cartoons, and I would put on a movie while I sat and drew my storyboards. And I watched this thing, and I watched it 3 times in a row. And I think I was fascinated because I thought, if this thing is even close to being true, we've been lied to for decades.
Well, yes, and that is interesting that you are combining your interest in art, by the way, because many folks will not know necessarily that you are a professional artist as well, and you're combining that interest with the interest of researching facts as well. You seem to have your brain in both right and left hemispheres synced together in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to do a lot of historical illustrations sometimes. So, if somebody says you have to draw a T-35 tank, you have to draw that tank. And you have to make sure you get all the parts right, and you have to make sure you do it correctly, or you're going to get some loud words from your art director or your fans. So you have to do a lot of research in my line of work.
Yeah, and it seems to be you have a knack for that research, because when I listen to your presentations about the JFK assassination on YouTube, for instance, and on the internet, they are so detail-oriented. You have facts in your presentation that I've never heard before, and theories, by the way, that seem to connect the dots that I've never had connected before. So maybe we should get started. As a matter of fact, before we get started, generally explain the 2 categories that you might be willing to talk about tonight regarding the JFK assassination.
Okay. The very first presentation I did, I called The Cast of Characters. And it was basically a presentation on who I thought were involved in the assassination and how these people were connected, how they were connected in various ways by social connections, nefarious activities, and in many cases their untimely demise. And to me, it was just beyond coincidence that all these people kind of knew each other or who each other were, traveled in the same circles, and seemed to surround Lee Harvey Oswald. I found that to be very bizarre.
Interesting.
The second presentation I called The Killers, where it's based on a discussion that took place in a Fort Worth hotel room a few days after the assassination between a DISC contract agent and Malcolm Wallace, who was Lyndon Johnson's personal hitman, where he described who he was convinced were involved in it, and he was organizing the assassination.
Oh, my word. So those are the
2 presentations.
Those are the general categories. You've got the cast of characters that we probably should start with, and then you've got the more specific idea of who the actual killers might be. So,
the kind of boots on the ground, so to speak, for that second one.
Okay. Oh, that'll be exciting. All right, folks. Well, listen. I hope. By the way, Brian, I think what we're going to do tonight, since I am broadcasting tonight from the ECETI Ranch down here in Trout Lake, Washington, at the foot of Mount Adams, I don't want to push my connection too hard, so I think we're going to go till 9 o'clock tonight. So don't.
No, that's fine.
You'll probably like that idea of not having to go an extra hour with me breaking up. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that right off the bat.
Okay.
And
alrighty.
Thank you for being with me tonight. This is fascinating. We have got a lot of response from the promos that we have done about your upcoming show here. Now, why don't we start out from the beginning of your cast of characters presentation, and you take us
Mhm.
where we should go.
Cast of characters presentation, I started out by talking about that that basically our 35th president was not very well liked by certain groups of people. And I go through a list of about 5 or 6 organizations, including the FBI, the CIA, the Mafia, the military-industrial complex, the State of Israel, and the Federal Reserve Bank, plus Lyndon Johnson himself, who were basically Kennedy enemies. And the Texas oil tycoons, you can throw them in there as well. And after that, I described Lyndon Johnson and his nefarious activities and his climb to success on the top of bodies, literally. I then go on to talk about other Texas oil men who were there, present at the time. And there was an organization of these guys, and there was a meeting at a Texas oil tycoon, Clint Murchison's house, where many of these characters showed up, including Lyndon Johnson, including J. Edgar Hoover, George Bush Sr., John J. McCloy, a personal friend of Adolf Hitler, and also became one of the Warren Commission members. Gerald Ford.
Oh my goodness! Well, Brian, you are breaking up just slightly there, but I want to. Oh.
Yes.
So, Brian, I don't know if you can hear me when I mentioned that, but you're breaking up slightly. What we're going to do is kind of reiterate those characters that you were mentioning. First of all, let's start out with LBJ. That would have been a major character involved in this whole idea that Kennedy was not shot by a lone assassin. Let's start with LBJ and explain his climb to power as well. Maybe I'll give a little background first.
That's a good idea. Lyndon Johnson, I describe him as a born-again psychopath. There's one book writer out there who wrote him and who once described him as an American Caligula. Lyndon Johnson had tied a stick of dynamite to a dog's head when he was a kid. He beat a mule to death in the middle of a street with an axe handle right in front of a bunch of people. The amount of corruption he was involved in was astronomical. His first run for office as a senator, he stuffs the ballot box. Well, his cronies stuff it. And this famous ballot box 13, which gets him into the United States Senate. And also there's murders that start to take place around this time, and including the killing of his own sister. And Lyndon Johnson basically lied, cheated, and murdered his way to the top. Lyndon Johnson was also in big hot water during the Kennedy assassination. Time magazine was doing an expose on him, and when this thing came out, it was going to send him right to the big house, because they had him nailed on various scandals. 2 of the biggest scandals in America. This Bobby Baker character, who's the bag man of the U.S. Senate, he's taken bribes to pass legislation. Johnson's getting a piece of it. And this guy, Billy Celestes, who's running around ripping off the government for millions of dollars. He had these grain and land swindle things and these cotton allotment scams that he was running. And, of course, Johnson's getting a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the action there. And Life magazine is also trying to figure out how Lyndon Johnson, who's only been in the military, a school teacher, public sector jobs, he's making about $18,000 a year as senator, or less than that, I think, probably closer to 15. He's worth $25 million. Where is he getting this kind of jack? So Kennedy gets shot, and he's killed, and his best friend and next-door neighbor for years, J. Edgar Hoover, whitewashes Lyndon.
In other words, you're saying that J. Edgar Hoover was a neighbor of LBJ? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they lived next door to each other for several years. When Johnson was in the Senate and when Johnson was vice president.
Okay. Now,
yeah, they were very good buddies.
you know, it's all who you know in this business, I would imagine. So when something